Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's tutorial is on how I made this tiered midi dress with a basket weave neckline. If this is something that you would like to learn, please keep watching. For this project, we'll be working with our front and the back basic pattern. I will start by contouring the front bodice to remove any gaping at the neckline. I start by drawing a circle centered at the bust point with my bust radius. Your bust radius is the difference between your bust apex and your underbust. I'll go ahead and draw a line from my bust point to the middle of the neckline. At the point where the line touches the circle, I will mark half an inch towards my center front. I will connect these 3 points from my bust point to the point on the circle and to the neckline. This line is known as the contouring guideline. I will slash open the waist start and the contouring guideline, making sure not to cut through. I will close the gap so that the ends of the circles meet, and I will tape it down. The aim of contouring is to prevent gaping by cutting out the excess fabric that folds between these lines. I will redraw the neckline and cut it out. For the depth of my weave for the front, I came down 9 inches at the center front and 5.5 inches at the armhole. I'll go ahead and connect these 2 points and we'll do the same thing for the back. On the back bodice, I came down 9 inches at the center back and 6 inches at the armhole. I will connect these 2 points and we will trace out the pattern of the weave on a fresh paper. I have folded a new pattern into 2. I will trace round the weave block for the front and for the back, add my seam allowance only at the bottom where I will join the weave to the main gown and cut it out. Here is the pattern of the weave for the front and the back. Next is the pattern for the shape of the neckline or the neck design. The original width of shoulder on the front bodice was 5 inches, but because we removed the excess through contouring, we have 4 inches. You must do this if you want your neckline to lay flat without gaping. For my shoulder width, I mark 1 inch away from the neckline and mark 3 inches for the width of my shoulder. For the depth of my neckline, I mark 5 inches. I will square out these points and draw in my new neckline. I will also blend in the line at the shoulder into the armhole. I will align the front and the back bodies on the shoulder and report the measurement of the width of the shoulder on the back bodies. At the center back of the back bodice, I came down at the neckline half an inch. I will connect this point to the point on the shoulder with my curve ruler and draw in my new neckline. I will also draw in my new armhole curve. I will find the midpoint between the new neckline and where the weave stops and draw a line. On that line, I will go in by half an inch, and on the neckline, I will go in by 0.25 inch. I will connect these points down to where the weave stops. This will give an oval opening at my center back. At this stage, you can choose whatever design you want for your weave and express it on your pattern. So this is all I did for the design for my weave. I'll keep this pattern aside and we'll come back to it later. I am marking guidelines for the attachment of the strap. I went up 2 inches at the armhole and 5 inches at the bottom. You can draw your lines however you want. This is just the guide. The width of my strap is half an inch and I want a space of 3/4 inch between each strap. So the space between each line is 1.25 inches. So here is the front and the back bodies all drawn. I'll go ahead and attach the straps. I'm attaching the strap by aligning the edge of the strap to the line on the pattern and at the same time stitching close the strap. I prefer to prepare my strap like this to avoid too much thread on the strap. When you measure between the straps, you will have a space of 0.75 inches, which was perfect for me. So depending on the amount of space you want in between your straps, just add it to the width of your strap and draw the lines on your pattern accordingly. Example is on the screen. I have attached on one side of the strap to the pattern with a straight stitch. I will stitch on the other side of the strap to secure it. I have secured both sides of the strap on the pattern with a straight stitch, and this is what the back of your pattern will look like. I'll go ahead and attach the rest of the straps. So here is the weave for the back pattern all sewn. This is what the back of your pattern will look like after attaching all straps. This was the first weave I did using a 1 inch space between the lines on my pattern. It turned out too close for my liking. So this is just to show you what a 1 inch space will look like if you intend to use it. I will go ahead and attach the straps for the front block off camera and we'll move to the shaping of the neckline of the weave. Back to the pattern, I will cut out the new neckline of the weave, label it so that I don't get confused. I will retrace it on a fresh pattern paper and add seam allowance only at the hem of the weave. Here are the new patterns traced out with seam allowance only at the hem of the weave. There are no seam allowance on the shoulders and at the armhole. I have also split open the back pattern to enable me shape it correctly. I'll go ahead and place the patterns on the weaves and cut out the new neckline. Moving over to the sewing part, I used 4 meters of fabric to make this dress. My fabric is folded into 2 for the front and back and the length is 40 inches. I'll remove the back and start with the front first. I have folded the 40 inches into 2 and I have in total 20 inches in length. I will mark the width of the body of the gown and cut, and I will also cut out the tier for the bottom of the gown. The width of my tier is 7 inches plus 1 inch seam allowance. I used the slash and spread method to create the gathers for the body of the gown. I have marked my seam allowance at the top of the fabric. I will draw lines on the pattern, label it, close the bust dart. I will place this pattern on the fabric with the highest part touching the seam allowance line. I will draw a straight line as a guide, then slash open the pattern. I will pin this pattern on the fabric and cut out the shape of the gown, and I'll do the same for the back pattern. I placed the front pattern on the back to cut out the back pattern, then I went up at the lower side of the gown by 1.5 inches, slanted it back into the gown and cut it. I went ahead and marked my pocket. My pocket starts at 9 inches and my pocket opening is 7 inches, and I made necessary notches. So here are all our pieces cut out: the pockets, the strip of fabric for the piping, the weaves for the back and the front, the body of the gown for the back and front, and the tier for the bottom of the gown. I'll start by attaching the pockets for the front and for the back. I will run a basting stitch on the part I will be joining to the weave for the front and for the back, and I will gather it. I will measure the circumference of the weave, check what I have gathered to make sure it corresponds, and make necessary adjustments. Once that is done, I will attach the two together with pins to hold them in place, then I'll go ahead and run a straight stitch. This is what we have for the front, and for the back, I will first pipe the center back that was cut open before I attach it to the body of the dress. The width of the strip of fabric I used for the piping is 1 inch, and I sewed at 0.25 inch. Remember, there are no seam allowance at the center back. So I'll go ahead and attach the back weave to the body of the dress the same way I did for the front pattern. So the weaves for the front and the back has been successfully attached to the body of the dress respectively. Now we'll work on attaching the shoulders. There are no seam allowance on the shoulder, neckline and armhole. I have prepared my strip of fabric by ironing 0.25 inch on both sides of the strip, and I have marked 0.25 inch on both shoulders and neckline, so that when I sew on the strip at 0.25 inch, it will correspond with the half-inch strip under the shoulders. I hope this makes sense. Just watch the way I'm attaching it in the video. When you attach the front or the back shoulder, depending on the one you started first with, to attach the second, place the shoulders on a flat surface. Make sure the shoulder points align. There should be no space between them. Pin and sew. This is what your shoulder will look like if you do it correctly. The seam between the shoulders must be half an inch and the shoulder points must align. I will go ahead and top stitch on it with the rest of the strip and finish off the shoulders. This is what we have for the shoulders. You can hardly tell where it's been joined. Yours should look like this if done correctly. This is what the back looks like. Now that the shoulders are done, I'll go ahead and pap the armholes, notch curved corners, top stitch, stitch close the gown, overlock it, and we'll move to the attachment of the tier. The width of the strip of fabric for all my piping is 1 inch because I'm sewing at 0.25 inch. If you're sewing at 0.5 inch, the width of the strip of your fabric will be 2 inches. The total circumference of my gown is 78.5 inches. When you divide into 2, I have 39.25 inches for the front and 39.25 for the back. To get the total length of my tier, I will multiply 78.5 by 2, so I will have 78.5 for the front and 78.5 inches for the back. This will total to 157 inches, which I rounded off to 160 inches, including seam allowance. The width of my tier is 7 inches. I'll go ahead and run a basting stitch, gather it, attach it to the gown, and finish off the hem of the tier. Our gown is almost ready. I've cleaned off rough edges using my overlocker, and we'll move to the final stage, which is the piping of the neckline. I have cut out a long strip of fabric for the piping of the neckline. The length of this strip of fabric includes the length of the rope I'll be fastening at the back of the gown. So you measure the total circumference of your neckline and add your desired length of rope for the back if you're using a rope. In place of rope, you can also use hook and eye, buttons, and other fasteners. The width of fabric at the neckline area is 1 inch, but for the rope at the back is 1.5 inches. Here is our gown all done and ready. I have taken off the papers. Please never you take off the papers if you have not completed your sewing, and make necessary corrections if any. Otherwise, you'll be so sorry for yourself. That's not to scare you anyway. So that's it for me, guys. If you find this video helpful, give your girl a thumbs up, share my video, leave me a comment, and join the family. Turn on your notifications so that you don't miss out on any of my video. Thank you all for watching and for all the support. I'll see you in my next one. A bientôt!